right, well, greetings, everybody. Welcome once again to the Rec Poker Podcast. This is episode 189, and today we are going to bring you an interview that we had with Gareth James. Fantastic interview, fantastic dude from the MTT Poker School, but really excited to share that with you guys. My name is Steve Fredland. I am Rec Poker Steve on PokerStars, and I'm reminding you that going on tilt is not mixing up your play. How about you, Chris?
I'm Chris Jones. I'm 5x5 on Twitter, and I saw a real human today, so that was very exciting.
In 3 dimensions.
Yeah, in 3 dimensions.
John.
I'm John Somsky, Poker Geek MN on Twitter and PokerStars, and this is a quote that I lifted from the beginning of Poker After Dark. Poker players don't stop playing poker because they get old. They get old because they stop playing poker.
Oh, I like that. It's a fantastic segue into Rob Washam.
Oh, why? Because I'm the old guy?
No, because you're just playing poker.
Okay. I'm Rob Washam. I'm Radman50 at the PokerStars home game. And the only thought I have, poker thought today, is don't open limp. Razor fold, for God's sakes.
Awesome. Well, with that, I want to introduce you guys to Josh Schwartz. Josh is joining us on the panel tonight. Josh is our newest member of the Wrecking Crew out at Rec.Poker. And Josh, just want to say hello, man.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Rec Poker is just a booming thing that I'm excited to be a part of, and I'm glad that we have a community of people that gets together and gets a chance to chat and form relationships and have a laugh, and on the side burner we play a little poker, so it's great. It's good stuff.
Right. And you're coming to us by way of Colorado.
Yes. Colorado Rec Poker is huge. We've got a lot of leagues going on here, so I'm very tapped into that, and we do a lot of things, and so I'm eager to kind of get that into the fold and bring everything together.
Awesome. Well, we're delighted. You've been around Rec Poker for a while now, and now that we got the Wrecking Crew, I know you jumped on that. So go out there to rec.poker/Josh Schwartz and check out his Wrecking Crew page. A lot of really good stuff out there. And hey, Taylor Moss just jumped on. He must have the kids down to bed. Taylor, I want to introduce yourself if you got any wisdom to drop.
Lack of wisdom on my part, but I think most people may have recognized the name once or twice. I don't get on for the podcast all the time. I do have twin girls, so it's a little bit tougher for me. The wife was nice enough to take them for a little bit so I could jump on here for a short, quick second. But been doing a lot of stuff with the Rec Poker Crew for a long time here. But yeah, this Wrecking Crew thing is kind of cool. I'm kind of interested in to see how it all plays out, and a lot of cool people that we're working with, smart people, and good stuff going on.
And Taylor is Gopher Boy TJM, and we'll hear more about his exploits in the home game later. But if you're playing our home game, you've encountered him a time or two. But thanks for jumping on here, Taylor. So thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to our official sponsor, Running Aces Racetrack, Casino, and Hotel. Our other podcast sponsors, Learn Pro Poker and Website Amp. A couple of real quick things before we dive into our discussion with Gareth James. As Josh mentioned, we do have an awesome, fun community. We celebrate each other's victories. Very positive, very encouraging, helping each other learn the game. So if that sounds refreshing to you, join us for free out at Rec.Poker. If you want to get a bit more learning and learn from some of the wizards that you'll hear from on the show, get a premium membership. You can use the code RECPOKER. You get $10 off your first payment. And just a quick shout out to Cade Moulton from the University of Iowa. As you guys know, we had the National Collegiate Poker Tour on here a while ago. As a result of that, the University of Iowa heard the podcast. They got involved. They joined that. And then Cade Moulton, who ended up winning the NCPT event on Sunday, and he is the boyfriend of Captain Walleye's daughter. So if you guys play the home game, Rob Adsum, Captain Walleye, his daughter, is the girlfriend of Cade Moulton, who won the NCPT. So congratulations to Cade and the crew out there. I think that's a fun thing that keeps building, and I don't know if there's anything more recreational than these college players just starting out. So with that, we're going to cut into the conversation that we recorded earlier with Gareth James. Well, for this conversation, our panel is being joined today by the latest member of the Wrecking Crew, Josh Schwartz. The Wrecking Crew is our highest level of membership at Rec.Poker. Combines all the great learning, connection, and engagement stuff that you normally get with the platform to increase your visibility both inside and outside the Rec Poker community. You get your own personalized URL. Like rec.poker/Josh Schwartz. You can also sell your services inside the Rec Poker store, coaching, video analysis, whatever you want, and you get some cool new ways to engage with the Rec Poker community. So with that, I just wanted to make sure we introduce Rec Poker Nation to the latest Wrecking Crew member, Josh Schwartz. Josh, thanks for jumping in there.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm super excited to be a part of this organization that really puts the people first. It's a really good thing for recreational poker players, which is exactly the demographic of folks that I deal with every day. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. We've gotten to know you a little bit over the last few months, and we're like, man, this is a great fit, and I think you're going to be a tremendous asset to the Rec Poker community, being active in the forums. But I also think people who take advantage of your knowledge and your insight are going to benefit as well. So super excited to have you and having you join on the panel today with Gareth.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so with that, why don't we bring in Gareth James? He was with us way back in May of 2018, which sometimes doesn't seem that long ago, but this year, for some reason, that seems like it was an eternity ago. Back then, I don't even think you had a book out or anything, but Gareth, welcome back to Rec Poker.
Well, thanks very much for inviting me back on. I'm very excited to be here and to join the panel and see what we can discuss, talk about, and dive into, I guess.
Well, let's talk a little bit about who you are for the folks in Rec Poker Nation that maybe aren't familiar with who you are. Talk a little bit about what you're involved with. I know you've been a coach for a long time. You got the website and all that, but give us an overview of who is Gareth James.
Okay, so I am a professional poker player, coach, and now author, as you, I think, alluded to a few moments ago. I coach privately and also have group coaching. So that's sort of the coaching side. And then I play online over here, over this side of the pond. We're very fortunate to have lots of options over here. So I'm whenever I start talking to Americans about online poker, I always feel a little bit sort of guilty that I get to play. So it's on PokerStars and all the other sites, Euro facing sites, or Canadian facing as well, I guess. But yeah, so that's kind of what I do when I play. And then last year launched a book called Purposeful Practice for Poker with my podcast co-host, Dr. Trisha Cardner. And it's all about sort of the modern approach to studying and obviously focused on studying poker.
So we've got the panel here. You'll hear different voices chime in from time to time, but Rob Washam and Chris Jones, Jim Reed, Andrew Feist, and Josh Schwartz, we're all kind of jumping in here, excited to chat with you. And I guess I'd love to start with, you are doing a ton of different things. So you've got the personal coaching, you got the group coaching, you've got the MTT school website, you've got the podcast, you've got the playing. I'm just kind of curious, like right now, where is most of your energy being spent? Maybe your time energy, but also, where are you finding the most joy in your poker world right now?
That's a great question. I think it's obviously a very unique time for us. Like the prize pools online were fantastic, and for a while it was great to be playing online. And we just finished, I guess in May, finished Scoop. And that was the last big series that I played. Now, there have been other big series, but after that series, I was just pretty burnt out, and I wanted to go ahead and adjust my schedule somewhat. So I actually switched to playing an off-peak schedule, which is my girlfriend loves, because now we get to spend more time together in the evening.
Nice.
But the downside is that I don't get to play in the evenings when the guarantees, the prize pools are so much juicier. So I think it's worked out better. And it also means that I'm pretty much doing the same thing every single day. So you know, I spoke about this on, I think, Instagram and to my group recently, that since January, I haven't taken a day off. And some people might say, okay, but playing poker, like that's not work. But I would argue that it is. I mean, if you play like lots of poker and you coach poker and you know pretty much do all poker stuff every single day, suddenly like you realize that you need some time off, and there's this temptation to do to go all out for poker, but it's you need some downtime as well. So I'm just starting to try and work in 1 day a week when I don't do anything. Having said that, I mean, I still end up like doing the chores and go and doing the shopping and stuff like that. But that's, trying to be away from the computer a little bit, trying not, because I mean, literally you can see, if you're seeing the video, you can see this is my office and I pretty much live in here like all day, creating content, playing poker, coaching, and then I spend a little bit of time in the living room watching some TV, and then that's pretty much it. And then it's sort of rinse and repeat. So, it's really important, I think, obviously in this time to make time for doing stuff like exercise and stuff like that. So I'm not just like, I know I've just said that I stay here all the time, but I do get out to do exercise and get some fresh air and stuff like that. But I think it's kind of a common thing for online poker players to spend a lot of time inside. I guess, I'm fortunate that through playing the off-peak schedule now, I might finish at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and I still have the evening to go out and, at the moment, get to see a bit of sunshine. Although, the UK is somewhat lacking in that, even at this time of the year.
I'm guessing, you're one of these people that just seems like you just like to have a lot of stuff going on. Either that's intentional because you're diversifying your business, or you just like to have your hands in a lot of different pots. Is there anything particular, any certain area that you're like, man, this is the part that I really enjoy the most right now?
Well, I have a background in education. So I was a secondary school teacher, like a high school teacher, in music for 6 years. And I spent a lot of time doing that and playing poker. And so over time, the poker became a bigger part of my life and the teaching became less. But I did realize that coaching and teaching and helping and helping people to improve at a game is always, it's always going to be there. Like I love teaching. I love helping people. So I think that's probably where a lot of my joy comes from. And also with coaching, there's like a very clear, if I put the effort in and my student puts the effort in, there's clear results. Whereas in poker, you can put a lot of effort in and you might not get the results on the table. But if we look at the results off the table, like the progress you're making off the table, then it's very much easier to sort of track that progress and to see it. And, the more work you put in, the more confident you're going to be in a lot of spots, and the more confident you're going to be at the table and at the end of it.
I love it. And guys, feel free to chime in, but because these guys know that I'll just keep grilling questions. I always have a million questions. But one of the things I love talking with people like you that are, you work with recreational players all the way up through, the high stakes cash players who are trying to prep for a tournament, like Matt Berkey and those sorts of folks. Yeah. What are some of the characteristics that you see of people that are able to kind of, like you said, either improve, off the felt or move up in the ranks or whatever? I mean, beyond the knowledge, the skill of the game and developing, okay, here's my tactics. What are the human characteristics, I guess I'm saying? Like what type of people or what type of environments do people flourish in? And the reason I ask that is, we're geared toward recreational players and we're all trying to get better and we're all trying to learn the X's and O's, as much as we can. But I think there's some other things going on that maybe are helping some people get to the next level and maybe are stumbling blocks for others. What do you see as some of those things that are key to advancing your game?
I think that's a really great question. I think having really clear, well-defined goals is really, really important. So knowing exactly what you want. I mean, I wouldn't say struggled, but I've had some sort of challenges with knowing exactly what I wanted. I remember there's a funny story about how you can really want something, right? So I remember saying to somebody, I wanted a life where I could just, have free time and have enough money to do whatever I wanted. And he said, okay, that's really interesting. And he's so what's stopping you from doing that? And I said, well, I'm not sure. Like, I just need to do this and need to do this and do this. And he said, well, what's your life currently like? And I said, well, I have a lot of time and I have enough money to go to places I want to go to. And at that point I realized that, I do have these goals, and I have goals myself to reach the next level, or to reach to be the best poker player that I can possibly be. But when you strip it down, like, I've just wanted to get to a point where I was comfortable, and I have a modest living, and I have a mortgage, and I can do all of the things I want to do. I mean, at the moment I can't go traveling, but that will soon change. And so I think making sure that you have a really clear idea of what you want, and that clarity is really, really important. And I think that that's what will help a lot of players. I think that there's this sort of general idea that people play a bit of poker and then they go, oh, well, this is a game that I enjoy and I'd like to get better at it. But then when they realize how much work it takes to get really good, they maybe see it as a little bit of I'm not sure I want to give that much time to doing this. So that might be something as well, like determination and sort of managing expectations, and also being okay. I mentioned it earlier on about being able to track and measure progress. Like, it's in tournament poker specifically, like, you can get really, really good at poker and still, lose those flips deep in a tournament, right? And you don't have that bink, and that is pretty demoralizing. So you have to have that great mindset to continue. So I think, mindset's important. Determination, clarity is, I would say those are the few things to focus on.
Yeah, I love that. I do some business coaching, and clarity is always the thing that I think hangs a lot of people up there. They're not really clear on what they want. And there's some great videos out there that really help you kind of solve for why, in a sense of what are you ultimately trying to accomplish. And that is huge. So I appreciate you calling that out. Josh, did you have something?
Yeah, that's a great point on what he's talking about on the goals. And then to take it one step farther, then you have to have a plan for each one of those goals. A really good book that I found, it's called The One Thing. The guy that runs Keller Williams did this book, and it's really just about focusing on that one thing that you want to accomplish, and then once you get there, then you go to the next thing. And so it's just all about that second piece of those goals, which is creating that plan to get to that goal, so you're just not kind of all over the place like you were talking about.
Yeah, I think, I completely agree. And I think that almost like the process of improvement is almost more important and better to focus on than the end point, because sometimes when you reach a goal, it's not as good as you thought it was going to be. I think there's a famous quote, certainly on Twitter, from Jason Kuhn, who said, trust in the process, because, every single day you make improvements. Because when you get to your goal, it might not be quite as good, because but the actual process is what you've really enjoyed. So I think having the plan for improvement, I think it's really good. I'm going to check that book out. Sounds great.
Love it. Good stuff. Good question, Josh. Thanks, Gareth. Why don't we turn it over to Chris or Jim, I guess, whoever is going to lead us through our hand discussion.
No, thanks for being with us, Gareth. I wanted to start, before we get into the hand, I wanted to just have a quick conversation about a recent video you had on Poker News, which I think is something that a lot of rec players sort of dabble with, the idea of, when do I slow play aces? How do I, when do I take advantage? How do I trap with aces? But I think you had a really great video, about a real clear video about like when are some really good situations to take advantage of this. But the one I want to really talk about was, you had, and I encourage everyone to go find this video, watch it, hear the whole context. But there's one particular situation I want to talk about, and that's when we're playing less than 25 big blinds effective. And I think there's some great advice about how to approach slow playing aces. But I guess my biggest question to think about is, now that we've taken this line of slow playing and it maybe hasn't worked out, and we've reached a flop, and we just got calls instead of raises, is there any way at this stack depth that we can now get away from aces? Are we slow playing them pre-flop, and we get a really bad flop, like a 9-10 jack of spades, and we got two red aces? are we committed to this no matter how this plays out, because we've taken this sort of slow approach, but we still have such a powerful hand? Or and then when do we decide, okay, now it's time to give up, even at this shallow stack depth with a powerful hand like aces? Like, what are the situations in which we can fold aces, having taken this passive line and being under repped, but then reaching this post flop, which maybe isn't an ideal flop for aces?
Okay, yeah. So I guess if the hand ends up being multi-way and there's been significant action before you on that kind of board, you could definitely fold. The great thing about having two red aces on a Jack 10-9 all spade board, say for example, is that the ace of spades is out there, and so it's possible that you can continue to stack off. And also, like, playing shallow stacked, it's still going to be a pretty strong hand. So you would need a pretty good reason to not want to stack off in that spot. And it's kind of why I alluded to in the video was that, you know, if you do the same thing at 100 big blinds, you're just going to get yourself into all sorts of trouble. And you definitely don't want to be stacking on for two red aces on a Jack 10-9 spade board for like 200, a 200 big blind pot. So yeah, I mean, that's a very obviously unique flop, and I guess you could make an argument for wanting to fold, against significant action. But yeah, I think the SPR is low enough where you could just get it in that spot, simply because that your opponent could still have some draws. They can get it in with a pair plus draw as well, or some sort of combo draw, I guess, on a Jack 10-9 board, so like Queen X with one spade. So yeah, I think you can still get it in. I mean, not loving life, of course,
right?
But that's part of the. I guess part of the reason two flat aces there is to get it in against those kind of hands. But yeah, the equity is going to run pretty close when you do eventually get it in. Like, it's going to be pair plus draw, I guess, quite a lot. But there's going to be enough money in there compared to the size of the stack for you to be okay, I think.
Great. Well, I thanks for that, and I think we'll turn to the hand that we were going to talk about. This recent hand played on ACR, and I think it's a pretty, we can talk about whether it's pretty standard hand, but I think it's a pretty standard hand until we reach some of the later decisions in the hand. But we are. Blinds are 600, 1200, and we open in the cutoff with Jack 10 offsuit. We have Jack of Hearts, 10 of Spades, and we have 61K behind. And we open to 2500, so pretty much a min raise. And the big blind with 118K behind calls are open. And the flop is King of Clubs, Jack of Diamonds, 6 of Spades, and our villain checks. We've hit middle pair. Any thoughts here on either the pre-flop action or what our steps are here, whether we're going to c-bet this?
Do you want me to go straight for it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So pre-flop, unless there's a short stack in between the cutoff and the big blind, I'd definitely raise bigger. We're playing, over 50 big blinds effective? Mm-hmm. So I would go to 2.5x, I think. Actually, maybe smaller, 2.3. At that stack depth, maybe once we reach 70 or 80, we go 2.5. But yeah, I would go bigger than what it was, 2.1 in that spot. That'd be the first thing. And then, post flop, I think it's a great board for imposition, and I think it's the kind of board that against a very, very good player, you might have to check back Jack 10 off sometimes, but against someone that's not going to find enough aggressive actions, like basically check raises on this board, you can just range bet for a small size for sure.
Mm-hmm. So in real life, that's kind of what this player does. We get a small bet of 2,100, and we you alluded to finding an aggressive player. Our big blind check raises us to 7,000. Is this a spot where we can find a fold, or are we too strong?
It really depends on the opponent, because it's a board where your opponent can definitely check raise pretty aggressively, And in a GTO world, you're supposed to continue with a jack. You continue with a 6 as well. You continue with queen 10, queen 10 obviously, but like queen 9, 10-9 suited, stuff like that. I think against a more recreational player, or I almost want to say like population, like even good regs are not finding enough check raises on this board, given that some of the hands that get check raised are like some 6x, and then some really weird check raises as well. Like a 7-5 suited with a backdoor flush draw. Like that's just not happening in real life. So I think against population, I think you can actually bet fold. Like, so you're range betting because you don't expect them to check raise aggressively enough. But when they do actually check raise, you then have to still keep that idea in your head, right? And then respond to that. So then you would find a fold. I'd be much happier calling here with like Jack 10 of clubs or Jack 10 of spades, so we have a backdoor flush draw as well. Mm-hmm. In fact, I would continue with 6x of diamonds and 6x of clubs with the backdoor flush draw in this spot. So yeah, I think population doesn't find enough bluff raises. They don't check raise the 6x. They don't bluff raise the random bluffs with some backdoors. But I guess on the other hand as well, they also don't check raise top pair enough. So in a GTO world, top pair is supposed to be raised pretty aggressively in this spot. And I feel like recreational players and maybe some regs as well, they have a hand like King Jack. No, bad example. King Queen or King 10. And they, I just forgot the board there. They just go, my opponent could have aces, could have ace king, could have kings, it could have jacks, could have 6s. I'll just call King Queen or King 10. But actually those hands make pretty good check raises. They get called by worse. And I think that, generally population is not finding those check raises. Mm-hmm. So what you're left with is some pretty strong hands for a pretty strong range, which might be 2 pair plus. Given that we'd expect the big blind to be 3-betting kings and jacks, that's literally then king jack, king 6, jack 6, and pocket 6s. But then some draws, right? So queen 10 or
queen 10 seems
ace 10
really,
with ace 10 with a backdoor flush draw. Queen 9, I guess. 10-9 seems reasonable. Mm-hmm. But they're not happening at full frequency, right? So they're not just check raising 2 pair plus and then check raising queen 10, queen 9 suited, 10-9 suited with a backdoor flush draw. It's going to be little bits of that here and there, which just makes their range a lot stronger. And so you take out those lighter check raises or more mergy check raises with like 6x and some other bluffs, and suddenly Jack 10's not looking too good on this board. So I against population, or against someone I didn't think that was capable of check raising anywhere near aggressively enough, I think Jack 10 off is just a fold on the flop for the check raise.
Can I just jump in there? Sorry, Chris, not to break the flow, but I love this idea. I think it's a part that a lot of us recreational players lose sight of. It's that thinking, okay, this population tends to not check raise enough, so I'm going to continuation bet here. And then they check raise, and we forget that part of our decision was that we started thinking, oh, they probably have like queen 10, or they probably, they have something like that. We kind of forget that. And conversely, if we think that this is a solid player that's going to have a higher frequency of check raising, if we should know that at the time we're deciding a continuation bet, right? Or we should just be checking back. I think, not to disrupt the flow of the hand, but do you have any tips on how do we connect those dots? How do we get better at making sure that our perspective is considered before we make a decision, and then it's followed through the rest of the hand?
That's a really good question. I think it's just really important before you make any kind of action is to think, what am I going to do versus the check raise, and have a plan for that. So you say, okay, if I bet and he check raises against this player, I'm very happy to continue. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. The things then that you do have to be somewhat flexible though. So for example, okay, if he check raises, I'm going to continue. So you bet and then suddenly jams. Okay, so we got to be flexible to bet, or sensitive to bet size. And so we might adjust our plan. But if you say, okay, if I bet and he check raises to, 3.5x our bet, then I'm going to continue with these hands and fold other ones. But this in this exact spot against this player, okay, I'm going to continue. Or against this player, I'm not going to continue. I'm just going to be very happy to fold.
So
just
having the plan,
sticking with the plan,
having the plan, and then conversely, how do we say, okay, well, this is a player that I don't think check raise is enough. And so if they do check raise, I'm probably crushed, so I'm going to fold. We can have that plan, and then I think what happens is we do bet, they check raise, and then we start convincing ourselves of something else because we don't want it to be true. Is that just discipline? Is it practice? Is it, how do we prevent ourselves from going, well, okay, now this guy probably just has queen 10. Like we went away from our plan. Like, how do we have that discipline to stick with our plan?
I mean, the easiest way would just to be pretend that he turned over pocket sixes and and then that would, you'd find it easier to fold Jack 10 in that spot, because you're folding because you don't think his range is that weak, right? You think it's very strong, and Jack 10 off is not going to play that well. So if you can, I don't know the psychology behind that, but
we got to bring Dr. Krishna Gardner in, huh? We have to bring your co-host to talk about that.
We need to, yeah.
All right, I'll let Chris get back to the hand, but that's I think a disjoint for me sometimes, and I think for other recreational players is thinking of it in advance and then sticking with it, and not changing our mind midstream about the type of player we're up against.
Yeah, just to sort of I guess piggyback on that, it's similar to when you bet small on the river and get raised, and then you level yourself into calling because you think that the other player has picked up on the fact you bet small,
right? And
that might not be happening. So I think it's I think it's like this leveling thing that goes on in your head is something to definitely work on. But having the plan and sticking to the plan is a good plan.
And I think it's this hand gets really interesting as we reach the river. I think this hand is one that was that we wanted to talk about, because I think there's some really interesting things that we have to go back to the beginning and this check raise moment to really think about. But as we reach the turn, we do in fact call. And the turn is the 8 of spades, and the villain checks. So it's king of clubs, jack of diamonds, 6 of spades, 8 of spades board. Again, we have jack of hearts, 10 of spades, and the villain has check raised us, and we called, and now has checked to us. This seems like a really good moment to check back with our position and sort of evaluate the river, but do you want to advocate for any other approaches here?
I'm kind of surprised to see a check on the turn from villain. I think it's a kind of spot where he should continue, even with his bluffs. So the most likely hands that he has at this point is going to be something like queen 9 suited that isn't spades. Like queen 9 of spades just seems like a very natural continue here on the turn. So there could be an argument for betting small to get value from the weaker parts of your opponent's range. We have the jack of spades, right?
We have the jack of hearts, the 10 of spades.
Okay. So that changes things. So I thought we had the jack of spades. Okay. So we could actually, like, he can still have some jack X of spades hands to check raise the flop. Now, obviously we just talked about how that's pretty unlikely, but given that we don't have the jack of spades, that's a pretty good spot for us to then get value from, say, jack 9 of spades, jack 7, jack 5, stuff like that. But I just don't see that being check raised in the first place. So yeah, I do think that, let's say we had ace jack of hearts, it could be a better spot to go for a bet on the turn, because there are more hands that we could potentially get value from. If there was a lightish check raise from like a jack X hand, and obviously jack X of spades, then we could get more value from that. But I do think it's a good spot to probably just go ahead and check back, especially given that we don't think. Well, I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I don't think that the big blind's check raising aggressively enough in the first place.
Okay. And so we do check back, and then the river is the 10 of diamonds. So, and I think this is the part where our hero was, I think, confused. So the villain checks. The pot is 21K. We have, probably, I think we've got 40 some 45K behind. We've been checked to twice now. We have 2 pair, but our villain has check raised us. So what do we go? I mean, do we go for value? How big of a bet do we go for in terms of value? Is this a spot to go for a small value and then fold to major aggression? Is it a spot to take, a bigger bet and then fold to that aggression? Is it a spot to just check back and hope our 2 pair is good? Do you want to know what our hero did in actuality, and we can talk about it, or do you want to talk about it before we talk about what the hero actually did?
Yeah, that was what did hero do?
So hero into the pot of 21K, bet 18K. So almost a pot size bet with their Jack 10, but was wondering if this is a mistake. And in this case, our villain folds, but was wondering if this is both a sizing or even just a betting mistake, given this board.
Okay, yeah, I think it's really tough to know. I mean, I'm slightly confused by the check on the turn from villain and then another check on the river to know exactly what we would get value from. So, against, in a GTO world or at equilibrium, we could get some King X hands to call, right? But I'm a little bit confused as to why those King X hands either wouldn't bet turn or at least bet river. So I'm really struggling to know what we actually get value from. Now, going back to what we said earlier about betting small and leveling ourselves to call a check raise, I think it's a common mistake that the in-position player, thinking, okay, we can bet small here, we can, get a crying call from a hand like Queen 10, 10-9, something like that, is that in theory we're not supposed to be betting small in position, because if the bet's not, if your hand isn't, trying to word this correctly, if you can't value bet your hand for roughly, let's say 50% pot, half pot, then you have the option to check back. So, it doesn't make sense with hands that you feel like you can only get value from if you bet really small to actually bet. Like, you can just check back. Now, obviously, as an exploit, if you feel like your opponent is going to, very happily call with Queen 10 or 10-9 on this river, then you can bet small. Like, you throw the theory out the window. You don't need to try and play like Pio or anything. Right. But I think that but then you have this issue of betting small and then getting check raised, and then you level yourself into wanting to make a call. And I think generally when you get check raised on this line, basically when the line doesn't make sense, it's the nuts. That's how I see it. So like if it's if it's a really bizarre line, I guess it could have been a hand like, I don't know, ace queen or queen 9 would make sense, I think, if I've got the board right. So yeah, I think that, I guess the other thing is that if you bet a little bit big, let's say you bet 2/3 pot on the river, which I think is a pretty nice size here, like you might get looked up by Queen 10 or 10-9 sometimes. I mean, from his point of view, like, what are you bluffing? Like, all of your hands really get there. They improve to 2-pair or a straight, and there aren't many bluffs. You'd have to start turning hands like 10-9 into a bluff or something for him to want to call with Queen 10. But he might not even, we've gone back and forth between thinking that he's thinking about what our range looks like to, we go back to the flop. We don't think that he's check raising aggressively enough. So we can't, there's a disconnect there, as Steve, you talked about earlier. So we have to make sure that we keep that consistent. But I think, you can bet, say 50% pot, 2/3 pot, look to get some sort of crying call from a king that got a bit scared on the turn on the river, didn't want to put any more money in, or maybe a hand like Queen 10, 10-9, something like that. But then the bigger you bet, the more expensive it is for him to raise. And I think it's really unlikely that he is then going to turn a hand like Queen 10 or 10-9 into a bluff raise on the river.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting spot too, and I think it's one where, because we're also starting as a rec poker community, we're starting to talk about finding value, getting value, finding value spots, thin value. Like, how do you actually make these decisions when you're in these spots where you don't have there's a hand where you're feeling a little bit like you're on sort of ice here, but it's still a spot where maybe you have to go for some value. And so, I kind of like the decision here. Maybe not the bet sizing, but I like the decision to try to at least, especially with those 2 checks from the villain, which do feel that it feels odd to check raise and then check through to the river. Feels like a pretty weak line, like somebody who took a shot with something and just gave up. But yeah, no. But thanks for your thoughts. Any other thoughts from the panel or Gareth on this hand?
Josh?
Yeah. So really, after looking at all of the action and kind of how this unfolded and eliminating a lot of the combos from the villain's range here, the only thing I'm really afraid of on this check is a 10-10. And it's very unlikely that he has that because we're obviously, we're holding that blocker. And so, like Gareth said, it's really, really hard to look at his range on this action and find where we're going to get any value. But on the flip side, we don't want to expose ourselves to getting to this position on the river and not betting here. So that's my conflict, is how do we keep our balanced range in a situation like this, which is very weird, very strange situation. How do we not open ourselves up to say a situation where let's put ourselves out of position in the same hand, right? So let's say we're the one that checks, and we actually hit the set of 10s and the guy jams on us, right? So looking at that type of a situation, how do we keep ourselves from being exploitable in this position on the river without making a bet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, the obvious answer is to say you can't be exploited if you check in this one hand example, right? One sample. But if your opponents notice that you check back a hand as strong as 2 pair on a board that's not overly scary, like obviously if it's a 10 of spades instead, we had the 10 of spades, so it wasn't going to happen. But if 10 of spades instead, then I actually, against this line, I think it's a better check back. Honestly, I think if the board gets more scary, then we can definitely go for a check back. So going back to what I was saying about, if they see us not bet 2 pair, then I mean that might mean in the future we get to bluff more frequently because we if we're not betting 2 pair, then we're probably betting something a little bit stronger, like a straight or a set in this example. But yeah, I don't think we should be too worried about getting exploited in this spot. I think we can still get value from some hands, even though it's I think we all agree that it's a bit of a bizarre line from the villain. And also we can very comfortably have some very strong hands. We can have Queen 9 and we can have Ace Queen on this river, and plus some other hands. I was thinking that I'm not sure we would land on the river with pocket 10s if we overfold the flop, given that we don't think the big blind's check raising enough. So that's something to think about. That you can think, okay, well, yeah, and then it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, Steve, about disconnect. It's like we get to this river and we piece the puzzle together, but then we're like, okay, but we could have 10s and we could have this hand and we could have this hand, but actually we don't, because we fold 10s on the flop. And so then our value region on this river gets narrower. And so we have some 2 pairs and some straights, but are we really checking back a set on the turn like jacks or kings? We're probably betting jacks, and we could check back kings. I think that's a reasonable check back. Just blocking his most obvious value check raises, which is king jack, king 6, but also some king queen or king 10s if he ever finds those. But yeah, it's just so we don't. Yeah, we have very few sets on the river, and we now have 2 pair and straights. I was still trying to think about what our bluffs would look like
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
in
Like,
this spot.
if I'm the opponent, I'm just like, the only value hands are queen nine and ace queen. I think that's the only thing that makes sense. But yeah, what are the bluffs? What I don't know what's there either. Rob, did you have something to throw in there?
Well, it just, to me, that bet on the river was almost like turning two pair into a bluff, because what are you going to get called by? That bet size was way too big for the situation. I think you need to bet something less than half pot to try to get value from those hands, like Gareth was talking about, the queen 10, those types of hands. They're not going to call a bet that size. So it was like, my first reaction was, wow, we just turned two pair into a bluff. I mean, why? I don't get it. So one other question, Chris, what type of tournament was this on ACR?
This was, I'm trying to remember, because this was sent to me. So I think this was a $15 ACR tournament. It was either a 15 or a 6. So it's a low stakes online tournament. So you can clearly have some opponents who would be, capable of maybe losing their mind with a king who called from the big blind. I think that's maybe what our hero is thinking, that you've got somebody with king 7 or kings, whatever, not king 6, king 5, just somebody who defended loose with a king in the big blind and is hoping to find a call there, I think, is what's going on here.
Okay.
I think it's pretty reasonable for a hand like king X of spades to play like this, actually. So to check raise flop, because, they know that they should be check raising some king X in this spot. And then they improve to top pair plus a flush draw, but then just go for a check. They just want to try and keep the pot small now, because a lot of the time we've obviously been focusing on what we should do as an exploit or as a response to their slightly tighter check raise range. But then they should be doing almost the same thing. I mean, we don't know that they are, but they, as soon as they check raise, they know that our range is getting somewhat stronger. If we're going to bet small on this board with a lot of our range, then a decent chunk of it has to fold versus a check raise, especially if it's a tight player or not someone that's not finding enough check raises here. So what ends up happening is they then think, actually, my hand is not sure if it's strong enough to value bet now on the turn. So what I'll do is I'll go for a check call instead, and then the bet didn't come in on the turn. So, but that's we talked about this earlier, how it's slightly confusing for a king not to want to bet on the river. But I can see some weaker king X of spades hands, now on the river, just think, okay, I'll go for a check. If if it checks back, I win. If he bets, then I can call. I still think we can get some value, but it's, we're kind of clutching at straws a little bit, I guess. We're searching or reaching for some hands we get value from.
Yeah, the question always is, like you said before, is it enough? Is it enough frequency that we're getting value to make it worth it? And that's the tricky part. Like Chris said, as a community, we're talking about bluffing, and now we're talking about value betting. And it seems like one of the things that differentiates the best players is they're able to get value in these sort of what seems like marginal spots. And so we're trying to figure out how to do that. So I think that's probably the impetus for the hand, Chris.
And just to add to that, what I really liked what both Rob and Gareth talked about with this hand is that if we think we're trying to target a, say, king 7 or king 5 of spades, like that river bet needs to be smaller. We need to make a king with a weak king feel like I just have to call this.
Right.
And I, with a almost pot-sized bet, we're definitely scaring away those hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Gareth.
Oh, so I was just going to say, so it goes back to what I was saying earlier about, like, as an exploit, you could definitely bet small here. And I think Rob definitely, advocates for betting small to get called by, the queen 10 and the 10-9s, but also those king X hands as well. If you never fear that you're going to get check raised and you're never going to level yourself into calling the check raise, then by all means, go for a smaller bet. Now, just really quickly, there's something I want to talk about on bet sizes. Thin value betting on the river is not necessarily for a small size. It's just about the sort of the narrower, sort of the weaker part of your range that you still get value from. I think it's almost sometimes a bit, maybe a common mistake that thin value means betting small. And so you can bet bigger in this spot, but thinner for value. So maybe Jack 10 is pretty thin for value. Like, I can see what Rob's saying, that it's like it is fairly thin because we're struggling to find hands that we actually get value from. So yeah, I think we can go for a smaller bet. What I was also going to say was that, let's say that we have a bet size. One end of the scale or spectrum is that we min bet for one big blind. The other side is that, or other end is that we jam. And if we jam, he's pretty much going to fold everything. Like, he never calls with anything that we beat. But if we min bet, he calls with loads of hands that we beat. So somewhere in the middle is this optimum size that we could choose, and it is going to be probably on the smaller side. I mean, I would always, try to listen to the theory somewhat, as in, don't bet too small, because then you do open yourself up, and then you think, I keep on saying this, but you do level yourself into then, he could just be, pouncing on this bet that, he read in a book that you shouldn't bet small in position. Like, why did he bet small? He's probably just going for some thin value, or I'm going to check raise. Now I'm going to counter that. I'm going to call with my Jack 10. He's got ace queen. Okay, nice hand. Yeah. So
can't you just give us the simple answer, Gareth? We actually have to think about this.
Yeah.
That's great. It's great stuff. I want to honor your time. If you have something else to add, that's cool. But I want to make sure we honor your time.
Oh no, it's fine. I'm happy to talk. It's great.
Well, one of the things I love about what Rob shared too is, if for folks that have been listening to the podcast for a while, we've had some great conversations with Rob about bet sizing, and he's more of a proponent of the bigger sizing, on the flop and some of those things. We've had some great discussion. But what I love about this is it leads to the genius of Rob Washam, where it's really about, it's about the situation. It's not just about, should I bet big or should I bet small? It's sort of what we're saying here is, what are you trying to accomplish? And I love that, the min bet, let's get value, but then if it opens up raises, well, then that's not good. So you want to make it enough of a size so that it hurts them to check raise you bluffing, but you don't want to bet so much that you don't get the value from the King X. So I love that it's not, that's why it's a beautiful game, right? It's why it's not just cut and dry of, here's what you should always bet in every situation.
No, I love that. And I really like that you use the question there. What are you trying to accomplish? I always use that in lessons. Like, what are you trying to achieve with your bet? And a lot of the time, suddenly players will go,
right.
I'm not sure.
Right, for sure.
Like, okay, so if you can't answer that question, don't do it in the first place. So if you can, I can list out some reasons for choosing a particular bet size. If you say, I'm betting, let's say you were bluffing in this spot. I mean, we've already said that it's pretty tough for us to find bluffs. We end up having to turn made hands into bluffs. Like, maybe we have 6-5 with a backdoor flush draw that we then have to try and bluff with, right? But then you say, okay, what are you trying to achieve with a bluff here? Okay, I'm trying to get this portion of hands to fold. Okay, so what bet size is going to get those hands to fold? And those are the few questions to ask yourself on every street. I think it's really important. The thing I was going to say that is, I'm not sure if he has ace queen. I think more recreational players will flat ace queen there. I think 50 big's effective. Maybe the big blind 3 bets ace queen at a pretty high frequency versus the cutoff. But yeah, we shouldn't discount it because some players absolutely will have ace queen.
So some of that, since you're allowing us to have a little more time, we'll take another 5 minutes or so. But I'm curious, just your thought process or how you teach this, especially to recreational players, right? So those of us who this isn't our full-time job. We're not spending 40, 50, 60 hours plus a week, able to study this thing. But I loved your idea of saying, okay, between this bet, the single big blind, and between this bet, the all-in shove, there's sort of this optimal thing, right? And I'm a math guy, so I kind of like the idea of optimization. But, how do you find those sweet spots, or how should we be thinking about that? I mean, are you actually going through some sort of combinatorics mathematics at the table? Is this just now it's become sort of a gut feel that you just know in that spot, I'm kind of it's a half pot size bet? Like, how do we start to get the knowledge to be able to know what that optimal bet sizing is, and then be able to make that so it becomes second nature at the table?
I think a lot of it is experience, and I think a lot of it is being able to the sort of the skill of visualizing what both ranges look like on any given street, any given juncture in a hand. I often get the sort of I don't know what the word is, like feedback from, I use solvers in a lot of the content that I make, and a lot of the sort of the pushback on it, I guess that's the word I was looking for, is that why are we using solvers? Like, we're playing low and mid stakes MTTs. Why are we using solvers? We're not playing against a bot. We're not playing against Pio. So doesn't make sense. But the great thing that using a solver does, obviously it tells us like what the strategy looks like, in an optimum universe if everyone's playing perfectly. But it also forces you to visualize what ranges look like. And it's sort of like a funnel system, right? So on each street, based on each action, there are fewer and fewer hands going through this funnel. And it then gives you an opportunity to get better at hand reading. So, you can definitely push back on it and say, like, we shouldn't be playing, GTO in a low stakes tournament, like, for sure. But by using the software, it almost forces you to then say, okay, this is what his range looks like on the, flop, turn, or river. And then you can say, okay, is this realistic for how this player is playing or for their population? And then base a decision on that. And so through experience, but just analyzing hands. And you can do the same exercise in things like Equilab. Like if you didn't want to invest in Pio or any other solver, like you can do it in Equilab and just sort of visualize. I think they have a function where you can take ranges to the next street. And so you can just keep on narrowing down this range. And then you say, okay, I think on the river, this guy's range looks like this. And this is where I was talking earlier about, some players make the mistake of adding some hands in. Oh yeah, he can definitely have like a, something on this river that he definitely couldn't have done. And then you could go back to the flop and think, okay, does he definitely have this hand? Does he not? And just make sure that you have his range sort of nailed down. And this is practice that you can do, like with the free software, with the free Equilab, free version of Equilab, and just start to sort of visualize ranges. And I think that's what a lot of the best players in the world do. They're able to visualize the range that for how it's supposed to look in like a equilibrium or in a GTO world, and then adjust it for the player they're playing against or population.
Love it. Josh?
So the $1 million question is, so we've kind of established that you've determined that you should make a thin value bet here on this hand. So the $1 million question to put you on the spot is, what is your bet on this hand?
How much I would bet on the end?
Yes.
Okay. I think anywhere between half pot and 2/3 is fine. I might err on the side of 2/3 because weaker players just love a call, and they might just find a call with the hands we talked about, and we can just eke out a little bit more EV, more value on that. So I think going for 2/3 I think I'd be happy with that.
So WWGD, what would Gareth do? That is how I'm moving forward with my poker career.
Love it.
So we're going to wrap up here pretty quick. It might have to be a two-parter. This is just such good stuff. But there was one question from one of the folks that's listening in on one of our membership group that's not on the panel here. Eric Jin says, let's see, did Gareth compose the intro music to his Poker on the Mind podcast?
It's a good question. As a songwriter and composer, it would have been good to say that I did, but unfortunately I didn't. I got it from a one of those websites where you can purchase music for use in podcasts.
Well, good stuff. Any last questions from the panel? Obviously, we could chat with Gareth all day, but great hand, great questions from everybody. Anybody else have anything else to throw in there?
I just wanted to say I've been listening to the Poker on the Mind podcast. I think you and Tricia do a great job of counterpoint against each other. She's got the psychology, the mindset, that sort of thing. You're using that in your day-to-day stuff, but then you also bring in that poker strategy and analysis. And I think together it really makes a fantastic podcast, and I love listening to it.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's really good feedback. I think I'm becoming less of a mental game fish, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but Trish is becoming less of a poker fish. So it's works. It's a good combo. Can you edit that bit out?
No, for sure. I'm gonna. In fact, we'll have to tag Trisha. Let's see, what's the timestamp on this one? No, for sure. Well, I've enjoyed you guys' podcast, and we had both of you guys on a few years ago as we were just kind of getting rolling on this thing, and you've been a great contributor to the poker community. Our folks really connect with the stuff that you're doing because it puts it into a way that people can understand. Even though you say things like PO Solver and all these things, like at the end of the day, you guys are thinking about the game and the principle level, and I think that's what we really need to do, and keep encouraging all of Rec Poker Nation to do that. So thank you for all of that. As we wrap up, let's talk about how people can find you. Where's the book? Where's the website? Tell us about your screen name that you use. What's up?
Okay, so the book is called Purposeful Practice for Poker. It's available from Amazon, so whatever the address is for Amazon in yours country, amazon.com.co.uk, whatever. You can also get it from the DMB website. And it's available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook as well. Trisha recorded the audio, but there is a little bit of me recording. Basically, in the acknowledgements, she didn't want me to. She didn't want to read herself thanking herself, basically. So I had to record that. But yeah, she recorded it in the States. So the audiobook's available. My website is mttpokerschool.com. So if you're interested in any private coaching or group coaching, then that's the place to go. It's pretty good time actually, because I'm just relaunching or reopening enrollment, I guess, for group coaching. So I've had a group with, I've been working with a group since October, producing lots of tournament poker content with them. And I'm just going to reopen enrollment for that and just grow the group now. So that's available from classroom.mttpokerschool.com/game changer. So yeah, if you're interested in, I guess, in group coaching, then that's the place to go. And I guess, if you love free stuff, then go over to youtube.com/mttpokerschool for, I don't know how many videos I have on there, but lots of tournament poker strategy videos.
All right. Well, man, thanks for the time with us today. Fantastic stuff. I really encourage you guys, go check out Gareth's stuff, the free stuff, the group coaching, all of it. Great guy, great demeanor. I think we can learn a lot from him. So I really encourage people to check it out. We do have a relationship with DMB Publishing. So if you want to use our link to go get his book, that's fine. Otherwise, just get it on Amazon.com or whatever. I do want to give a quick shout out to Jim Reed. I know he's been on this thing the whole time, and his internet connection is bad, but he helped set this whole thing up with Gareth. So thanks to Jim. But Gareth, again, thanks for your time, and we'll be in touch. And hopefully it's not another 2 years before we have you on here.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on whenever you guys want to have me. And it's been great fun. So thank you very much.
All right. Take care, Gareth.
And you. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, great stuff there from Gareth James. That was a phenomenal discussion. I know we could have gone on for hours, and he was very gracious with his time there. So let's jump into what's going on around Rec Poker Nation. And as always, we'll start with the great one, John Somsky.
All right. Well, our monthly home games next month, they're going to be on August 5th for No Limit Hold'em and August 12th for our mixed games. We're going to be playing Pot Limit Omaha 8. That is known by some as the Devil's Game. It is because it's a split pot game and yet played pot limit, which makes it dangerous to say the least. There is a video available on our site, so you can take a look at that to learn the rules. But if you've played Omaha 8 or better before, it's the same thing, just pot limit instead of limit. And then for our Rec Poker Nightly Series, July 20th, we had Spot Conlon. Daniel Kennedy won his second Nightly Series victory. July 21st was Money Mortis. Frank Pisklovich winning his first Nightly Series victory. July 22nd was Graphics 16. Roger Shute winning an impressive fifth Nightly Series victory. And then on July 23rd, none other than our very own Gopher Boy TJM, Taylor Moss, winning his very first Nightly Series victory. And this kind of surprised me because he's had a few wins, but just never in the nightly series.
Well, he won the 2019. What do you win? You won 2 of them in 19, right? Or what were the 2 wins you have?
The 2019 inaugural Rec Poker Player of the Year.
That's true. That's true.
So won the very first tournament that we did, the monthly tournament. Then I also won a mixed game tournament. I believe it was the 5-card draw. And finally got the first nightly series win.
Nice.
Excellent. And July 24th, Bloop 7, Mark Bloomberg got his first nightly series victory. On July 25th, Gloves 1010 got Colin Anderson, got his third nightly series victory. And then we hear again on July 26th from Gopher Boy TJM Taylor Moss winning his second nightly series victory. Now, you do realize you only need to win once to get into the Tournament of Champions. So this second one is really wasted.
I wanted to go on a crazy streak because I wasn't able to play the 25th, but I played the 24th when Bloop 7 won. I took second place in that.
Unreal.
So had a crazy run of first, second, first going for me. Just sun running, I guess.
Probably a little bit of positive variance, but pretty solid play in there as well. But I think it's a good strategy to block spots, right? The more you win in a month, the fewer people that you have in your way to get the silver pin. It's genius. And I still have a bone to pick with you. I still got $1 out there for anybody who slow rolls Taylor Moss.
I tried, but then we just pushed.
Oh, funny.
It's too
good
hard
stuff,
to do.
John. Anything else, John? Otherwise, great stuff.
Nope, that's it.
All right, Robert, what do you have to say?
Well, we got our poker book study going on. Matt Matros, the game plan. We're going to recommence on August 5th at 6:30. That'll be Wednesday at 6:30. We're going to be going through chapters, or I guess it's rules. We're going to be going through rules 8 through 11. A lot of not your normal stuff. We're going to be talking about set mining and squeezes and the different things like that, the 4-betting all-in type activities. So it's not going to be your normal, pre-flop ranges. It's going to be a lot of interesting discussion. And I'm sure there will be some rabbit holes gone down while we go through that. I just want to remind everybody that these are available on our website. We record these. We also have some handouts that we put together. I know Jack's done a great job of putting together the ranges on some spreadsheets showing how they all play out on a spreadsheet. We also have some 13 by 13 grids of all the ranges on there, so you can look at that and see kind of what we talked about and some of the concepts, the key concepts that we talked about so far in that book study. So I'm looking forward to the one coming up on August 5th. It should be really a fun one because again, we're not talking about that boring old stuff. What do you do with your range pre-flop? We're going to be talking about squeezes. We're going to be talking about set mining, how all that stuff works. It should be a gas.
So if anybody shows up, you will give them a free squeeze. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. It'll be a virtual
squeeze.
Because, it was social distancing and everything. I can't actually squeeze anybody.
Right. So you're going to be holding a sign, free squeezes.
Yes, exactly.
Well, it's good stuff. I mean, I know you guys do a great job out there at the book study. If you're a member, check that out. And like everything we do at Rec Poker, it seems like you guys are just having a blast doing it as well. So it's pretty cool. And seeing some of the members engage and really the stuff Jack's putting out there is super great as far as a great supplement for the study. All right. Well, I know Andrew is he's out camping this week, so we're going to pass on him. But he's the guy that leads our Learning with Partners. Phenomenal job of pulling together all the stuff from the different folks who have given us access to their premium content that we then share with our premium members. So great job to Andrew. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, in membership land, we're closing up the month of July, all about bluffing, and we're just getting ready to record our August member seminar on thick and thin value, finding some extra value, making sure we take advantage of value spots. How do we play them when we smash flops? Those kinds of questions will be all the kinds of things we cover in that seminar. So I'm looking forward to that. I think this is an area where a lot of players, it seems bluffing might seem more tantalizing, 3-betting might seem sort of more sexy, but this is some of the stuff that I think a lot of players miss out on. I think especially some players, there's opportunities lost for value, and there's sort of the unseen sort of opportunities as well. So I think this will be a really good subject to talk about.
Love it, man. It's going to be fantastic. And I know, I don't know if you want to talk about this at all as we segue to Taylor, but I know Taylor did a little bit of a session with you, and then immediately after that, you went on a nice little run.
Yeah, no, I had a guy. I mean, I'll let Taylor talk about the conversation we had, which was really great and helpful. He pointed out some things that were showing up in the way I was playing. I sent him all the hands that I played basically in June, and I had a Saturday. I played 5 ACR tournaments. I cashed in 4 of them. I binked 1 of them. I went deep in another. It was a good poker day.
It was a good poker day. If you're just listening to the podcast, you're not watching the video, he's got this little grin on his face that we've all had when things have gone well. So way to go, Chris. Yeah, Taylor, tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Yeah, so you've probably heard about the wrecking crew and stuff that we're doing now. But as a sample for some of like the coaching offers that we have through there, I got Chris to sit down with me, kind of talk about his database of hands. And we just went over some things. Didn't go too deep into detail, but just found some things right away. Just, picked out probably like 3 key items and said, hey, Chris, here's the areas where I'm noticing the biggest area of improvement for yourself. So we did that session. We actually created a nice little sample video if you're interested in watching that, to kind of see how we went over that. Even if you're not interested in coaching, it's really interesting to see the things that like we're talking about, we're pointing out, and we're going big picture, saying here's how often you should be doing certain things and stuff like that. So it was a really good conversation, and I'm glad we have the great story of Chris going on a great run right afterwards. I'll even incorporate that. I did some studying myself to prep for the session I did with Chris, and also did some studying and prep of this value discussion that we're about to have. And then I went on the home game run. So a little bit of studying can go a long way.
Now, I know I don't want to be a big spoiler alert, but is there, people might be listening going, okay, database, hands, I send to somebody and they somehow help me. Can you give just a real quick, flavor of what, either something you found with Chris or just generally what could be found in somebody's game through just looking at data?
Mm-hmm. So one of the big things that if you watch the sample video we went through with Chris, we just noticed some stats, and we were looking, where does the trend seem different, and noticed that when he gets into middle position and someone 3-bets him, he has an attachment issue to his cards. He doesn't want to believe his opponent, and he doesn't want to fold the 3-bets. So he kind of dug into some of those pieces, and it was like,
that's so great.
What are we doing here?
Sexy, Jack 10 of diamonds or something like that. I'm like, yeah, come on. I got a C3 here, but it was really costing me some chips.
Yeah. So, the thing, Chris is a great player. And we started off the session, it was like, hey, your win rate is doing great. But when you enter in these spots where he's, even EV or slightly negative EV, it's really tearing him down, because his normal is winning. He's not a normal breaking even, and the break even spots are, normal to him. He needs to be in winning spots. So got to keep pushing himself to do better.
Yeah, so you guys, if you're out there listening, man, this sounds pretty cool. Go check it out, man. Go look at the Wrecking Crew. Go look at the different people that are offering different things. Look at that sample video. A lot of really cool stuff, and it sounds like that was a fairly quick conversation, and we can't guarantee that you're going to cash 80% of your tournaments and bink 20% right after doing a session, but you are going to become a better player. And I think, we talk about community, that is what we do, but we're a poker learning community. at the end of the day, this is what we have in common is we're all trying to get better at poker. So there's some great tools that we've got out there, including access to Taylor Moss to take advantage of. And one of the other folks that you have an opportunity to take advantage of is Josh Schwartz. You met him in the Open. Josh, you got anything you want to share with the nation?
I do. Welcome, Rec Poker Nation. Thanks for having me. A lot of things in my world to talk about. I'm going to make it really brief. First off, I'm going to say congrats to Taylor. Great run. This is a great story. This is exactly what we're trying to accomplish here with all of us getting together and just getting better. I have a similar story. I just started coaching with Team Rocket Box. You met Woody last time we got together, and right after our first coaching session, I banked a 350 person MTT on the BPO TOC qualifier, and then my next two tournaments were top 10%. So it works. It works if you work it. Keep coming back. So it's all good stuff. But in my world, a lot of things going on. You see everything behind me. These are the things that I'm involved in. A couple of great groups here in Colorado. OverTheTopPoker.com. Check them out. They have some great tournaments here locally if you're in Colorado. They're also doing some online stuff. They're a part of the BPO organization, which is a big organization in the rec poker. They do a lot of great national tournaments, so that's good stuff there. FPN, FreePokerNetwork.com, is also something I'm involved in. That's one of my personal leagues here, FPN Colorado. Once we go live, we'll be in the bars and doing our thing in bar poker world. Right now, we are on NLOP.com running online tournaments nightly at playfpn.online. A couple of new things that's just fantastic. I didn't know I was going to be able to mention this tonight. So nrgpoker.com, we're getting ready to launch this now, like in the next couple of weeks. Brand new membership site. We're going to have free roll satellites and other tournaments and things going on. We're going to have trips to Vegas. We're going to have cash prizes. We're going to have all kinds of awesome things going on. Check out that website. It's up and running right now. You can check it out, play some free rolls, and just see how the software works. Here in a couple of weeks, we'll make an announcement on when we're live for memberships and let you know when the leagues are happening. So awesome stuff there. The other thing I want to share over this shoulder. I don't know what's left and right to you guys.
Most of our folks are audio only, so they have no idea what you're talking about.
Fair enough. Real Cards Poker. This is something that is innovative and new. So we're all in the RNG poker world. We're online. We're playing these RNG platforms. Real Cards Poker is a fantastic thing. We're able to play on our phones and on our computers and our mobile devices. And we have machines right here in Colorado that are dealing real cards, and you're able to play online. So no RNG software, real cards being shuffled and dealt and scanned and all of that, just like in the casino. The dealing machines, it's the same thing. So it's super exciting. So check that out. Any of these things you can ask questions about. You can contact me on the Wrecking Crew page. I'm right there. You can hit my forums up. Ask me any question. I'm a treasure trove of useless information. We'll talk about hands and things like that. But mostly I'm going to talk about rec poker and what my other wreckers are doing. I love giving shout outs to these folks because they're doing wonderful, wonderful things. At the end of the day, we're going to become friends, and there's nothing worse than that. So thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate you. It's great to be a part of the crew, and keep up the fight. Keep up the good work.
Awesome, Josh. Thanks so much, man. Yeah, get a hold of Josh if you have any questions on any of that stuff, and check out his page and check out all the pages. A lot of really cool things that are happening out there. Really nothing else to add, man. You guys covered it all. I think at the end of the day, it's still, the new website. We're still working on it. We're still getting good feedback. We're still making adjustments. So keep that coming. I think it's working well. People are excited about it. But keep any feedback coming. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your neighbors, tell whoever. We got some pretty cool things that are happening out there with that deal. So with that, anything that we missed, guys? Anything that you're like, shoot, I forgot to mention this? Shaking heads, nothing. All right. Well, let's end it there. But thanks to the sponsors once again: Running Aces Racetrack, Casino and Hotel, website AMP, Learn Pro Poker. Thanks again to Gareth James for jumping on there. Thanks to Josh Schwartz for joining us. Thanks to the rest of the panel. Appreciate you guys, and we will chat with you next week.